Mr. Mohamed Zubair, for your valuable speech. Now we are connecting to Malaysia. I would like to invite Associate Professor Dr. Mohamed Iskandar Shah Mohamed Rashid, Associate Dean School of Graduate and Professional Studies in SIF, Malaysia. Selamat datang, dear sir. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me loud and clear?
She is also the Director of International Relations of Halal Institute, halal certification body with headquarters in Spain and Mexico, which has institutional and trade relations with more than 80 countries. She works mainly in global Islamic economy and halal markets, and occasionally delivers lectures or takes part in projects that is related to policy making, Muslim minorities in Europe, Islamophobia, economic development, female and youth empowerment, or regional cooperation. She formerly worked in several European programs for research, development, cooperation, and education. Ms. Barbara Ruiz, the stage is yours.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. The topic I have chosen for this halal lifestyle session is anti-halal movements in Europe. And the reason is the recent bans on non-stand halal slaughtering in different countries in Europe. And I would like to explore a little bit further the reasons behind this and the potential consequences. I don't know if you are familiar with Edward Said. He was a scholar who wrote a much acclaimed book called Orientalism. Orientalism is the way the West, between brackets, looks at the East or the Orient. And the way that the West look upon the East is from up to down. And if you look at this description, these are the thoughts of many Europeans about Muslims, especially in the topic of terrorism. You know, when you talk about Islam or halal in Europe, people do not imagine fair economy or good food or healthy habits. They immediately connect with terrorism. And this is something we still need to change, and we haven't done much to change. So Orientalism is a construction, a cultural construction that tries to place in front of us the other, the one who is different. And to do this, we invest in the other certain characteristics, right? So their culture is always worse or less than ours being the West. So it is our duty as the West to occupy their territories, to change their culture, and to change the social norms. This is the supporting culture behind colonialism, for example. And the position always is that we, the West, are superiors, and we are here to teach, even to tell the East who they are and what they have to do. So I'm going to start from this Orientalistic vision to explain what's happening at the moment with the halal industries in Europe. So at the moment, there are many anti-Muslim movements in Europe. We will discuss two of them briefly. I will provide some more information in the paper, but in 12 minutes, we don't have time to go much into it. So these movements are designed to exclude Muslims from society. In the previous panel, we were talking about how Islamic finances not being allowed or not being accepted in some countries are excluding Muslims from mainstream banking products. In the case of anti-halal movements, it's the same target, to exclude Muslims from society. In the case of Europe and halal, there is also a parallelism with kosher and Jews. The same bans for halal apply for kosher, and the same target is applied here. They are trying to exclude this community from society. So anti-halal campaigns are part of a very large anti-Muslim propaganda, which is spread in Europe and other territories. And it presents Muslims as a threat to a way of life meaning the freedoms we have in Europe. For example, if you look at the photos from demonstrations, you will see people depicting Sharia in a very horrific way to warn other Europeans that if Sharia is implemented here, we will lose everything we have, we will lose our freedom. Also, what happens is that Muslims are growing in numbers in Europe, some from immigration and some because they convert to Islam. And the more Muslims there are, the more the fear they feel that they are going to change their lives. Why? Because Muslims stick to their lifestyle. They do not fit in because they do not change. They do not become apparently Europeans. They do things differently. And then they continually pose a threat to the European lifestyle. And the third is when they are aware that Muslims or immigration, particularly immigration, arrive in Europe, they immediately request money from the welfare system. I don't know if you are familiar with the welfare system, but refugees, for example, political refugees, war refugees, have a right to ask for some money from the government, which we all pay, all taxpayers. And then the people who argue about Muslims invading Europe or using our resources, which are normally far-right groups, they also say they are an economic burden and we should stop Muslim immigration into the continent. So what happens? Any distinctiveness, anything that you do because you are a Muslim, if you wear the headscarf, if you wear a different outfit, if you talk a different language to your kids, if you go to the halal butcher, whatever you do which is different and you don't fit in the mainstream culture is seen as part of an attack. It means if you cannot fit into European culture, you are actually attacking European culture. So this is the base for the anti-halal movements we're going to see. So when you are living in Europe and some, for example, some universities or some organizations organize debates or conferences about Islam, these are two posters to show how they see Muslims, right? They never choose a picture like this. They never choose colorful, happy people. They always choose gray, dark, poverty. They choose to show the worst side of some Muslim societies, and also they choose to connect it with violence or terrorism. So there's always this concern in the European mind about safety, because the growing image and the growing culture behind depicting Muslims in Europe is based on this kind of images and this kind of messages. So in the end, you believe this is how it really is. Right. Right, so basically, I'm going to concentrate on boycott halal and anti-halal movements, but there are other movements. There is a Stop Islam big horizontal movement in Europe. It mainly concentrates far-right and right spectrum, political side parties and activists. What they do is they do demonstrations. For example, they do not want to aid immigrants. They don't want immigrants to be an economic burden for welfare systems. And they don't want to give jobs, for example, for Muslims. They don't want to rent flats for Muslims, and so on. So there is a whole spectrum of ways they can actually exclude Muslims from society. So let's have a look at some of the anti-halal movements. I think this is my time? No, maybe I have, 3 minutes, okay, then we have time. So, okay, when we talk about anti-halal movements, do not think it's people in the street shouting with a poster. No, it's even in the European Parliament. So if you look at all the strata of society, from the European Parliament, the European Commission, some of the governments, and lastly the NGOs or the activist organizations, you will see anti-halal movements all across the spectrum in Europe. So this is an example from the European Parliament. And this question is, that some people are not happy because some birds, meaning poultry, are killed, are slaughtered in the halal way, and then no stunning is used. But this is not reflected in the label. And then some particular consumers, of course, always linked to this macro movement, they request that this is shown in the label. We will explain the consequences of this later. So they also want to know if an imam can be the person who slaughters the chicken, because obviously there is a regulation requiring that the slaughter people have some certification and some training, and maybe an imam is not fitting in here, so they're sending this question to the parliament, and then, well, this is the answer. If you go to European Parliament and you type halal, you will see many questions connected with poisoning, with labeling, with funding terrorism. You will see these representatives of far-right parties, how they are dropping these ideas in every parliamentary debate. So in Europe, the qualification for halal products is not regulated. Only slaughtering is regulated. And slaughtering in Europe, compulsory is with stunning, except in the case of halal or kosher. But it is up to the member states, meaning the 28 countries, to decide whether they want to ban completely halal and kosher or not. And this is what's happening now. So more and more countries are banning halal without prior stunning. This is one of the things that we should be very worried about. Animal welfare activism? Animal welfare activism in Europe tries to put animal rights at the same level as human rights. And therefore, there is a very strong movement, although not very numerous yet, that says animals should not be used in any way for the benefit of humans, meaning you should not consume meat or eggs or milk or use fur or leather or any product coming from an animal. But as you can imagine, a lot of the industries in the world and a lot of the products we consume are connected with animal origin. If we make equivalent human rights and animal rights, obviously the whole world is going to be a lot different. So this is the first sentence in Europe that declares that if you slaughter an animal without stunning, meaning halal, you cannot label it as organic. And as you know, organic is a big consuming trend growing up in all the world. This court case was promoted by this organization for supporting the animals being killed in slaughterhouses. And it says that if your animal is slaughtered without pre-stunning, it cannot be labeled as organic, no matter it meets the other organic regulations. And this is a big blow for halal, because step by step, and this is the Supreme Court of the European Union. I mean, there's no going back with this. We cannot undo this. Which means if they start winning court cases against halal, in the end, halal production, halal consumption will disappear from Europe. It will be totally banned. You can find it, I mean, the reference is there. You can find this case in the internet with all the detail. You see, so the complaint started with this case of a product being certified halal and showing the indication organic farming, right? So in the end, they managed to ban these two labels at the same time. Now, this is very fresh, 17th December. The European Court rules authorities can ban kosher and halal slaughter in Belgian region. As you know, there are some countries already banning halal without pre-stunning, and this is growing. I'm going to show you the map somewhere here. Yeah. So at the moment, in red, you can see the countries that allow religious slaughter legally in Europe. In yellow, the countries that require pre-stunning. Belgium was the last one. There was half of the country wanted it to be banned, and the other half of the country didn't want pre-stunning to be compulsory. Then other cases like post-cut stunning and concurrent sedation in blue is only the case of Finland. So as you can see, the map, it has changed in the last few years. In 10 years, this has changed. In 5 more years, you will see more countries in yellow. Now, I'm going to go back to explain some more about boycott halal. So what happens if these groups succeed and labeling with the method of stunning and slaughtering becomes compulsory? If it becomes compulsory, many people would be capable of identifying non-stunned meat, and then they would reject to buy it on ethical grounds, which means a lot of the trade will be lost. This is going to impact directly not only the producers, but everybody consuming halal in the world. It will also affect exports, right? Now, this picture that you see here is a study of a newspaper, The Guardian, responding to consumers' concerns. And this is also very recent. It has maybe 4 or 5 years. Before this, nobody cared about how they killed my lamb or where my hamburger comes from. These questions were not in the public. This is the result of a campaign, and it's happening now. Sorry? Yeah. Right. So I'm going just to go to the point. Right. This is one of the points. The argument is that they are forced to eat halal when nobody forces them to eat halal. So the strategy is very simple. They want to identify halal, make everybody aware of what halal is, make everybody boycott these products, so halal sales and production will drop. And this is an effective way of excluding Muslims from society, but also is going to impact the whole halal trade. Right? So just to sum up, because we run out of time, there is a network of organizations behind this. This is not casual, this is not coincidental, this is intentional, and there is a network of different kinds of institutions pushing for this. So my point here in the end will be, we are not aware of this. We in the halal world are not aware of this. We need a roadmap or a strategy. We need to resort to some OIC or official representative of Muslims to defend halal in the European Union territory. We need to promote a campaign explaining that halal is not something horrible and that in fact most animals are slaughtered in the same way, in very similar ways. And we should refuse compulsory labeling on the grounds that halal certification is voluntary. And lastly, we need to make a campaign to explain that all these campaigns against halal have an effect on freedom of religion and freedom of belief in Europe. So the ultimate goal is not to stop halal slaughtering. The ultimate goal is to stop Muslims being free in Europe. So that's that one. So these campaigns are global, and it will affect everybody sooner or later. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of this. And if you have any other ideas, please share with me. I'll be very happy to start some sort of group for discussing this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Barbara, for your valuable speech. Now, I would like to invite our second speaker, Dr. Emine Akın from Alkali Life Center, Healthy Life and Education and Consultancy Services. Dr. Akın is a medical doctor specialized on clinical biochemistry. She received training